Chapter 24. A Stunning Revelation. Sati rushed out of her tent, followed by Kritika and Ayurvati. A little slowly, Sati, cried Ayurvati, running to keep up. In your condition, Sati turned and grinned at Ayurvati, but did not reduce her pace. She hastened towards the royal tent where Shiva and Parvateshwar would no doubt be after the declaration of victory. Nandi and Veerbhadra stood guard at the entrance. They moved aside to let Sati in, but barred Ayurvati and Kritika. "I'm sorry, Lady Ayurvati," said Nandi apologetically, his head bowed. "I have strict instructions to not let anybody in." "Why?" asked a surprised Ayurvati. "I don't know, my lady. I'm very sorry." "That's all right," said Ayurvati. "You're only doing your job." Veerbhadra looked at Kritika. "I'm sorry, darling." "Please don't call me that in public," whispered Kritika, embarrassed. Sati pulled the curtain aside and entered the tent. "I don't know, my lord," said Parvateshwar. "It doesn't make sense." Sati was surprised that Parvateshwar had called Shiva my lord, but her joy at seeing Shiva safe brushed these thoughts aside. "Shiva? Sati?" mumbled Shiva, turning towards her. Sati froze. He didn't smile when he saw her. He didn't have the flush of victory on his face. He had not even got his wounds dressed. "What's wrong?" asked Sati. Shiva stared at her. His expression worried her deeply. She turned towards Parvateshwar. He looked at her for an instant with an obviously forced smile, one that was measured, obviously, concealing bad tidings. "What is it, Pitritulya?" Parvateshwar looked at Shiva, who spoke at last. "Something about this war troubles us." "What could be troubling you?" asked a surprised Sati. "You have delivered the greatest victory ever to the Suryavanshis. This defeat of the Chandravanshis is even more comprehensive than what my grandfather had achieved. You should be proud." "I didn't see any Nagas with the Chandravanshis," said Shiva. "The Nagas weren't there?" asked Sati. "That doesn't make sense." "Yes," said Shiva, his eyes carrying a hint of foreboding. "If they were so thick with the Chandravanshis, then they would have been present on the battlefield. If they were being used by the Chandravanshis against us, then their skills would have been even more useful in the battle. But where were they?" "Maybe they have fallen out with each other," suggested Sati. "I don't think so," said Parvateshwar. "This war was triggered by their joint attack on Mandar. Why would they not be there?" "Shiva, I am sure you will figure it out," said Sati. "Don't trouble yourself." "Damn it, Sati," yelled Shiva. "I can't figure it out. That's why I'm worried." A startled Sati stepped back. His uncharacteristic vehemence stunned her. This was most unlike him. Shiva immediately realized what he had done and reached out his bloodied hand. "I'm sorry, Sati, it's just that The conversation was interrupted as Daksha, accompanied by an aide, raised the curtain and swaggered into the room. "My lord?" cried Daksha as he hugged Shiva tight. Shiva flinched. His wounds hurt. Daksha immediately stepped back. "I'm so sorry, my lord," said Daksha. Turning to his aide, he continued, "Why is Ayurvati outside? Bring her in. Let her tend to the lord's wounds." "No, wait," said Shiva to the aide. "I had said that I didn't want to be disturbed. There is always time to address the wounds later." Shiva turned towards Daksha. "Your Highness, I need to speak about something." "My lord, if you will allow me first," said Daksha, as enthusiastic as a little boy who had just been given a long denied sweet. "I wanted to thank you for what you have done for me, for Meluha. We have done what even my father could not do. This is an absolute victory." Shiva and Parvateshwar looked briefly at each other before Daksha garnered their attention again. Emperor Dilipa is being brought here even as we speak, said Daksha. What? Parvateshwar's surprise was evident. But we have just dispatched soldiers to their camp. They couldn't possibly have arrested him so soon. No, Parvateshwar, said Daksha. I had sent my personal guard much earlier. We could see from the viewing platform that the Chandravanshis had already lost by the time the Lord and you had begun the third charge. That is the benefit of the perspective you get from a distance. I was worried that Dilipa might escape like the coward he is. So I sent off my personal guards to arrest him. But Your Highness, said Parvateshwar, shouldn't we discuss the term of surrender before we bring him in? What are we going to offer? Offer? Asked Daksha, his eyes twinkling with the euphoria of triumph. Frankly, we don't really need to offer anything considering that he was routed. He is being brought here as a common criminal. However, we will show him how kind Meluha can be. We will make him such an offer that his next 7 generations will be signing our praises. Before a surprised Shiva could ask what exactly Daksha had in mind, the crier of the royal guard announced the presence of Dilipa outside the tent. Accompanying him was his son, Crown Prince Bhagirath. Just a minute, Kaustav, said Daksha as he went into a tizzy, organizing the room exactly as he would have liked it to be. He sat down on a chair placed in the center of the room. Daksha requested Shiva to sit to his right. As Shiva sat, Sati turned to leave the tent. Shiva reached out to hold her hand. She turned, felt his silent plea, and walked behind his seat to sit down on a chair. Parvateshwar sat to the emperor's left. Daksha then called out loudly, "Let him in." Shiva was anxious to see the face of evil. Despite his misgivings about the absence of the Nagas, he genuinely believed that he had fought a righteous war on the right side. Seeing the defeated face of the evil king of the Chandravanshis would complete the victory. Dilipa walked in. Shiva straightened up in surprise. Dilipa was nothing like what he had expected. He had the appearance of an old man, a sight that was rare in Meluha due to the Somras. Despite his age, Dilipa had a rakishly handsome bearing. He was of medium height, had dark skin, and a slightly muscular build. His clothes were radically different from the sober Meluhan fare. A bright pink dhoti, gleaming violet angvastram, and a profusion of gold jewelry adorning most part of his body combined to give him the look of a dandy. The laughter lines around his lips spoke of his humorous disposition. A trimmed salt and pepper beard, accompanied by thick white hair under his extravagantly colored crown, completed the effete look while adding an intellectual air. "Where's the Crown Prince Bhagirath?" asked Daksha. "I have asked him to wait outside since he can be a little hot-headed," said Dilipa. He looked only at Daksha, refusing to acknowledge the presence of the others in the room. "Don't you Meluhans have any custom of offering a seat to your guests?" "You are not a guest, Emperor Dilipa," said Daksha. "You are a prisoner." Yes, I know. Can't you get a joke?" asked Dilipa superciliously. "So what is it that you people want this time?" Daksha stared at Dilipa quizzically. "You have already stolen the Yamuna waters 100 years back," continued Dilipa. "What else do you want?" Shiva turned in surprise towards Daksha. "We did not steal the Yamuna waters," yelled Daksha angrily. "They were ours and we took them back." "Yes, whatever," dismissed Dilipa with a wave of his hand. "What are your demands this time?" Shiva was astonished at how the conversation was progressing. They had just defeated this evil man. He should have been penitent. But here he was, being condescending and self-righteous. Daksha looked at Dilipa with wide eyes and a kindly smile. I don't want to take anything. Instead, I want to give you something. Dilipa raised his eyebrows wearily. Give us something? Yes, I intend to give you the benefit of our way of life. Dilipa continued to stare at Daksha with suspicion. We are going to bring to you our superior way of life, continued Daksha, his eyes marveling at his own generosity. We are going to reform you. Dilipa said with half a snigger. Reform us? Yes, my journal Parvateshwar will govern your empire as Viceroy of Swadeep. You will continue to be the titular head. Parvateshwar will ensure that your corrupt people are brought in line with the Meluhan way of life. We will live together as brothers now. Parvateshwar turned towards Daksha, stunned. He had not expected to be dispatched to Swadeep. Dilipa appeared to have difficulty in controlling his laughter. You actually think your straight-laced man can run Swadeep? My people are mercurial. They are not going to listen to your moralizing. Oh, they will, sneered Daksha. They will listen to everything we said because you don't know where the actual voice comes from. Really? Where does it come from? Do enlighten me. Daksha motioned towards Shiva and said, Look who sits with us. Dilipa turned to Daksha's right and asked incredulously, Who's he? What is Lord Indra's name is so special about him? Shiva squirmed, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Daksha spoke a little louder. Look at his throat, O king of the Chandravanshis. Dilipa looked again with the same arrogance towards Shiva. Despite the dried smattering of blood and gore, the blue throat blazed. Suddenly, Dilipa's haughty smile disappeared. He looked shocked. He tried to say something, but he was at a loss of words. Yes, O corrupt Chandravanshi, scoffed Daksha, moving his hands for dramatic effect. We have the Nilkant. Dilipa's eyes reflected the surprised agony of a child who had just been stabbed from behind by his own father. An increasing dread gripped Shiva's heart. This was far from what he had expected. Daksha continued his hectoring. The Nilkant has sworn to destroy the evil Chandravanshi way of life. You have to listen. A bewildered Dilipa stared at Shiva for what seemed like an eternity. At long last, he recovered enough to softly whisper, Whatever you say. Before Daksha could bluster further, Dilipa turned and staggered towards the tent curtain. At the exit, he turned around to look at Shiva once again. Shiva swore that he could see a few tears in those proud, haughty eyes. As soon as Dilipa left the tent, Daksha got up and hugged Shiva lightly so as to not hurt the Nilkant. My lord, did you see the look on his face? It was precious. Turning towards Parvateshwar, he continued, Parvateshwar, Dilipa is broken. You will have no trouble controlling the Swadipans and bringing them around to our way of life. We will go down in history as the man who found a permanent solution to this problem. Shiva wasn't paying attention. His troubled heart desperately searched for answers. How could a struggle that appears so righteous just a few hours back now suddenly appears so wrong? He turned towards Sati. Forlorn, she gently touched his shoulder. What are you thinking, my lord? Asked Daksha, intruding into Shiva's troubled thoughts. Shiva just shook his head. I just asked if you would like to travel in Dilipa's carriage to Ayodhya, asked Daksha. You deserve the honor, my lord. You have led us to this glorious victory. This conversation did not appear important to Shiva at this point. He did not have the energy to think of an answer. He just nodded in an absent-minded manner. Wonderful. I will make all the arrangements, said Daksha. Turning towards his aide, he continued, Send Ayurvati in to immediately dress the lord's wounds. We need to leave by tomorrow morning to make sure that we have control over Ayodhya before chaos reigns in the aftermath of Dilipa's defeat. With a namaste towards Shiva, Daksha turned to leave. Parvateshwar, aren't you coming? Parvateshwar gazed at Shiva, his face creased with concern. Parvateshwar? Repeated Daksha. Taking a quick look at Sati, Parvateshwar turned to leave. Sati moved forward, holding Shiva's face gently. Shiva's eyes seemed to droop with the heavy weight of tiredness. Ayurvati lifted the curtain carefully. How are you, my lord? Shiva looked up, his eyes half shut. He was descending into a strange sleep. He yelled suddenly, Nandi? Nandi came rushing in. Nandi, can you find me a cravat? Cravat, my lord? Asked Nandi. Yes, but why, my lord? Because I need it, shouted Shiva. Shocked at the violence of his lord's reply, Nandi hurriedly left the chamber. Sati and Ayurvati looked at Shiva in surprise. Before they could say anything, however, he suddenly collapsed, unconscious. He was running hard, the menacing forest closing in on him. He was desperate to get beyond the reach of the trees before they laid their ravenous claws upon him. Suddenly, a loud, insistent cry pierced through the silence. Help! Please help! He stopped. No, he wouldn't run away this time. He would fight that monster. He was the Mahadev. It was his duty. Shiva turned around slowly, his sword drawn, his shield held high. Jai Shri Ram, he yelled as he raced back towards the clearing. The bushy thorns slashed his legs. Bleeding and terrified, he ran hard. I will reach her in time. I will not fail her again. My blood will wash away my sin. He sprang through the thicker, disregarding the thorns that cut deep into his flesh. Landing into the clearing, his shield was held defensively, his sword gripped low to retaliate, but nobody attacked. A strange laughter finally broke through his concentration. He lowered his shield slowly. Oh Lord! He shrieked in agony. The women lay stricken on the ground, a short sword buried deep into her heart. The little boy stood on her side, stunned. His hand was blooded with the struggle of his kill. The hairy monster sat on the rocky ledge, pointing at the little boy, laughing. No! Screamed Shiva as he awoke with a start. What happened, Shiva? Asked a worried Sati, darting to hold his hand. Shiva looked around the room, startled. A worried Parvateshwar and Ayurvati got up too. My lord? Shiva, it's all right, whispered Sati, gently running her hand along Shiva's face. You were poisoned, my lord, said Ayurvati. We think that some of the Chandravanshi soldiers may have had poisoned weapons. It had affected many others as well. Shiva slowly regained his composure. He got off his bed. Sati tried to help him up, but he insisted on doing it himself. His throat felt excruciatingly parched. He stumbled over to the ewer. Followed closely by Sati, he reached over and gulped down some water. It seems like I have been asleep for many hours, said Shiva, finally noticing the lamps and the dark sky beyond. Yes, said a worried Ayurvati, close to 36 hours. 36 hours? Cried a surprised Shiva. Before collapsing onto a comfortable chair, he noticed a forbidding figure sitting at the back, his right eye covered in a bandage, his amputated left hand in a sling. Dripaku? Yes, my lord, said Dripaku as he tried to get up and salute. My God, Dripaku, it's so good to see you. Please sit down. It is heavenly to see you, my lord. How was your end of the battle? I lost too many men, my lord, almost half of them, and this arm and eye, whispered Dripaku. But by your grace, we held them till the main battle was won. It wasn't my grace, my friend, it was your bravery, said Shiva. I'm proud of you. Thank you, my lord. Sati stood next to her husband, gently caressing his hair. Are you sure you want to sit, Shiva? You can lie down for a while. I have sloshed around for long enough, Sati, said Shiva with a wink smile. Ayurvati smiled. Well, the poison certainly didn't affect your sense of humor, my lord. Really? Is it still that bad? Grinned Shiva. Parvateshwar, Drapaku, and Ayurvati laughed weakly. Sati didn't. She was watching Shiva intently. He was trying too hard. He was trying to forget, trying to get others to focus on something other than himself. Was this dream much worse than the others? Where is His Highness? Asked Shiva. Father left for Ayodhya this morning, said Sati. My lord, said Parvateshwar. His Highness felt that it would not be right to keep Swadeep without a sovereign for so long under the circumstances. He felt it was important that the Suryavanshi army marched across the empire immediately with Emperor Dilipa as prisoner so that the Swadipans know and accept the new dispensation. So we are not going to Ayodhya? We will, my lord, said Ayurvati, but in a few days when you are strong enough. Some 12,000 of our soldiers remain with us, said Parvateshwar. We will march to Ayodhya when you are ready. His Highness insisted that Emperor Dilipa leave behind one of his family members with our unit as hostage to ensure that no Swadipan attacks our much smaller force. So we have one of Emperor Dilipa's family member in our camp? Yes, my lord, said Parvateshwar. His daughter, Princess Anandamayi. Ayurvati smiled, shaking her head slightly. What? Asked Shiva. Ayurvati looked sheepishly at Parvateshwar and then grinned at Sati. Parvateshwar glared back at Ayurvati. What happened? Asked Shiva again. Nothing important, my lord, clarified Parvateshwar, looking strangely embarrassed. It's just that she is quite a handful. Well, I will show that I remain out of her way then, said Shiva, smiling. So this route seems to be the best, said Parvateshwar, pointing at the map. Shiva, along with the other poisoned soldiers, had recovered completely over the last 5 days. The march to Ayodhya was scheduled for the next day. I think you're right, said Shiva, his mind going back to the meeting with the Emperor of Swadeep. It's pointless feeling sorrowful for Dilipa. I'm quite sure he was posturing during our meeting. The Chandravanshis are evil. They are capable of any deception. Our war was righteous. We plan to leave in the morning, my lord, said Parvateshwar. Turning towards Sati, he continued, You can finally see the birthplace of Lord Ram, my child. Yes, Pitratulya, smiled Sati, but I don't know if these people would have kept his temple unharmed. They may have destroyed it in their hatred. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud commotion. Parvateshwar turned around with a frown. What is going on out there, Nandi? My lord, said Nandi from the other side of the curtain. The Princess Anandamayi is here. She has some demands, but we can't fulfill them. She insists on meeting you. Please tell Her Highness to wait in her tent, growled Parvateshwar. I will be over in a few minutes. I cannot wait, General, screamed a strong feminine voice from across the curtain. Shiva signaled to Parvateshwar to let her in. Parvateshwar turned towards the curtain. Nandi, Veerbhadra, bring her in, but check her person for any weapons. In a few moments, Anandamayi, flanked by Nandi and Veerbhadra, entered Shiva's tent. Shiva raised his eyebrow at her appearance. She was taller than her father and distractingly beautiful. A deep walnut-colored complexion complemented a body that was voluptuous yet muscular. Her doe eyes cast a seductive look while her lips were in a perpetual pout, sensual yet intimidating. She was provocatively clothed with a dhoti that had been tied dangerously low at the waist and ended many inches above her knees, while being agonizingly tight at her curvaceous hips. It was just a little longer than the loincloths that the Meluhan men wore during their ceremonial baths. Her blouse was similar to the cloth piece that Meluha women tied, except that it had been cut raunchily at the top to the shape of her ample breasts, affording a full view of her generous cleavage. She stood with her hips tilted to the side, exuding raw passion. You really think I can hide some weapons in this? Charged Anandamai, pointing at her clothes. A startled Nandi and Sati glared at her, while Shiva and Veerbhadra sported a surprised smile. Parvateshwar shook his head slightly. How are you doing, Parvateshwar? Asked Anandamai, flashing a smile while scanning him from top to bottom, her eyebrows raised lasciviously. Shiva couldn't help smiling as he saw Parvateshwar blush slightly. What is it you desire, princess? Barked Parvateshwar. We are in the middle of an important meeting. Will you really give me what I desire, Journal? Sighed Anandamai. Parvateshwar blushed even deeper. Princess, we have no time for nonsensical talk. Yes, groaned Anandamai. Most unfortunate, then perhaps you can help me get some milk and rose petals in this sorry little camp you are running. Parvateshwar turned towards Nandi in surprise. Nandi blabbered, my lord, she doesn't want just a glass, but 50 liters of milk. We can't allow that with our rations. You are going to drink 50 liters of milk? Cried Parvateshwar, his eyes wide in astonishment. I need it for my beauty bath, Journal, glowered Anandamai. You are going to take us on a long march from tomorrow. I cannot go unprepared. I will try and see what I can do, said Parvateshwar. Don't try, Journal, do it, admonished Anandamai. Shiva couldn't control himself any longer. He burst out laughing. What the hell do you think you are laughing at? Glared Anandamai, turning towards Shiva. You will speak to the Lord with respect, princess, yelled Parvateshwar. The Lord? Grinned Anandamai. So he is the one in charge, the one Daksha was allegedly showing off. She turned back towards Shiva. What did you say to trouble my father so much that he isn't even talking anymore? You don't look all that threatening to me. Be careful about what you say, princess, advised Parvateshwar fiercely. You don't know whom you are speaking with. Shiva raised his hand at Parvateshwar, signaling him to calm down, but Anandamai was the one who required soothing. Whoever you are, you will all be finished when our Lord comes, when he descends to Swadeep and destroy the evil of your kind. What? Take her out of her, Nandi, yelled Parvateshwar. No, wait, said Shiva, turning towards Anandamai. He asked, what did you mean by saying when your lord will descend to Swadeep and destroy the evil of our kind? Why should I answer you, Parvateshwar's lord? Parvateshwar moved rapidly, drawing his sword and pointing it towards Anandamai's neck. When the lord asks something, you will answer. Do you always move that fast? Asked Anandamai, her eyebrows raised saucily. Or can you take it slow sometimes? Bringing his sword menacingly close, Parvateshwar repeated, answer the Lord Princess. Shaking her head, Anandamai turned towards Shiva. We wait for our Lord, who will come to Swadeep and destroy the evil Suryavanshis. Strong lines of worry began creasing Shiva's handsome face. Who is your lord? I don't know. He hasn't shown himself as yet. An unfathomable foreboding sunk deep into Shiva's heart. He was profoundly afraid of his next question, but he knew that he had to ask it. How will you know that he is your Lord? Why are you so interested in this? I need to know, snarled Shiva. Anandamai frowned at Shiva as if he was mad. He will not be from the Sapt Sindhu, neither a Suryavanshi nor a Chandravanshi. But when he comes, he will come on our side. Shiva's inner voice whispered miserably that there was more. Clutching the armrest of his chair, he asked, and continued Anandamai. His throat will turn blue when he drinks the somras. An audible gasp escaped Shiva as his body stiffened. The world seemed to spin. Anandamai frowned, even more confused about the strange conversation. Parvateshwar glowed furiously at Anandamai. You are lying, women. Admitted, you are lying. Why would I? Anandamai stopped in mid-sentence as she noticed Shiva's cravat-covered throat. The arrogance suddenly vanished from her face. She found her knees buckling under her. Pointing weakly with her hands, she asked, Why is your throat covered? Take her out, Nandi, ordered Parvateshwar. Who are you? Shouted Anandamai. Nandi and Veerbhadra tried to pull Anandamai out. With surprising strength, she struggled against them. Show me your throat. They held on to her arm and dragged her backwards. She kicked Veerbhadra in the groin, causing him to double up in pain as she turned towards Shiva once again. Who the hell are you? Shiva stared down at the table, unable to find the strength to even glance at Anandamai. He held his armrest tightly. It seemed to be the only stable thing in a world spinning desperately out of control. Tottering towards her, Veerbhadra pointing Anandamai's hands from behind as Nandi threw an arm around her neck. Anandamai bit Nandi's arm brutally. As a howling, Nandi pulled his arm back. She screamed again, Answer me, dammit, who are you? Shiva looked up for one brief instant into Anandamai's tormented eyes. The pain they conveyed lashed his soul. The flames of agony burned his conscience. A shocked Anandamai suddenly became immobile. The misery in her eyes would have stunned the bravest of Meluha's soldiers. In a broken voice, she whispered, You are supposed to be on our side. She allowed herself to be hauled out by Nandi and Veerbhadra. Parvateshwar kept his eyes down. He dared not look at Shiva. He was a good Suryavanshi. He would not humiliate his lord by looking at him when he was at his weakest. Sati, on the other hand, would not leave her husband to suffer alone. She came to his side and touched his face. Shiva looked up, his eyes devastated and filled with the tears of sorrow. What have I done? Sati held Shiva tightly, holding his throbbing head against her bosom. There was nothing she could say that would alleviate his pain. All she could do was hold him. An agonized whisper suffused the tent with its resonant grief. What have I done?